And thanks for joining us today for the NICA and our business partner Ruby Talent's live webinar on the topic of cybersecurity for SMBs. Next slide, please. Just some general housekeeping. The webinar is going to be recorded and put up on NICA's website. If anyone has any questions, please during the webinar, please just pop them in the chat box and we'll cover these off in the Q&A towards the end. So as soon as you think of them, pop them in the chat box so you haven't forgotten by the end. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, just an overview of our agenda. Ruby Talent are going to chat with you a little bit about their business, cybersecurity for SMBs, so today's threat for landscape for small business and so on. And then I'll move on to some information about NICA membership. Next slide. Just introducing Ruby Talent. We have Glynis Kavanagh, who is going to have a chat with you about the type of work that Ruby Talent does and can assist you with, being a recruitment partner. Can I just let you carry on with this, Gladys?
Absolutely. Thank you, Susie, so much for the introduction, and thanks to NECA, of course, for this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. It's really great to have you here. Just over to the next slide. I will talk a little bit more about Ruby Talent. So I'm Gladys, as you can see. I'm the agency owner of Ruby Talent. Ruby Talent is an Australian-owned recruitment agency. We have been specialising building teams for 25 years, and that's across information technology, business and support, and labour hire. As you can see on the screen, we are, of course, an official partner provider to NECA members, and we offer flexible and affordable recruitment services. And of course, while recruitment is our core service, we enjoy going beyond recruitment and adding value to all our customers and candidates. And we do this through networking events, webinars, market insights, and employer branding. And this is why we are so excited to collaborate with Monty from Tenno-Dex. Tenno-Dex is a cybersecurity consultancy, and Monty, he is a cybersecurity master. I call him a master. He's a specialist and an industry leader. So I am delighted to pass and hand you over to Monty. So over to you, Monty.
Thank you for that warm introduction, Gladys. And thank you for having us. I'll probably take over and share my screen, Susie. So I'll just do that now. Share screen and let me know if you guys can see my screen. Yep, you can. Perfect. So thanks again, everyone, for being here today. So my name is Monty Abbott. I'm the principal consultant at Tenno-Dex, and basically we're a cybersecurity consultancy where we specialize in a broad range of domains for cybersecurity for SMBs and large enterprise organizations. A quick 30-second intro about myself. Been in the industry for 18 years, so it's been quite a while. And I've worked with some of the largest operators in Australia, top 4 banks, mining companies, you name it, I've probably been there. And I've had also the pleasure of working alongside some government agencies and quite recently the SMB space, where there's a lot to unpack and a pretty exciting space, considering that 97% of all Australian businesses are categorized as SMBs, which is quite a substantial number. Now, speaking of that, some more statistics. I'm a mathematical person. Every 6 minutes, a cybercrime is reported and lodged with the ASD. So by the time we're done with this webinar, there'll be at least 6 or 7 reports that have gone through to the ASD. And the average cost for an incident is about 56,000 Australian dollars. And that's been going up year on year across the business landscape. Why? There's a whole host of reasons for organizations being targeted, especially the smaller organizations. And I foresee it continue to growing with the advent of AI and all these new, I'll call them cool technologies that are coming into play. And following on the increase, you can see some more stats on the screen. Small, medium, large, year on year, going higher and higher. And just a bit of explanation on that. The larger organizations tend to lose more money because of their size and their operating costs. And obviously the smaller businesses lose less. But in saying that, it's still large amounts that are moving through from a cybercrime perspective. The largest three types of attacks tend to be email compromise. And basically what that means is your email inbox is hijacked. Business email compromise is the other one, where after hijacking your email, they use your contacts and your trusted relationships to commit fraud. And the third one is identity fraud, which is basically accessing your account. So imagine someone being able to access your Office 365 account and all the associated applications. That may not be yourself, it could be anyone in the organization. And obviously the threat actors know how to vectorize and launch an attack using that information. What we're going to be discussing today is some of these threats, warning signs, some controls, and a very high level plan, and when you sort of need to get a partner. I'm always of the opinion that you should bring a partner in as soon as your knowledge sort of finishes in that domain, but we'll discuss that more and more today. So some of the 5 that I'll be going through include phishing, BEC, that's business email compromise, ransomware, credential theft, and scams targeting businesses. So phishing is quite an interesting one. So 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, your week is done, you get an email from ASIC, or pretending to be ASIC, with a pay now button. Okay, so there's a bit of urgency, there's a bit of a logo that you'd recognize, and the pressure's on. There's an overdue invoice, there's something that hasn't been paid, which is obviously quite common for all businesses, more so for the SMB space. This is quite an interesting type of threat because it represents 60% of incidents that have been lodged to the ASD in the 24-25 period. Okay, and some things that organizations can do about it is obviously never log in or pay from a link, turn on filters for what you know you already pay for, and make reporting blame-free. So when people see things, make it okay to report it, because that's the key to understanding and mitigating that type of threat. With the advent of AI, I can currently see this increasing quite substantially, because AI tools allow people who launch phishing attacks to send over more sophisticated and refined types of attacks. For those in the Microsoft 365 space, you can enable Defender for Office for safe links and safe attachments, and also enable something called external sender tagging, which basically tags senders that you're aware of. And when you get a email from a sender that hasn't sent an email to you before, you sort of get notified, which is quite cool. Google has something called enhanced pre-delivery scanning and external warning banners. So they're all things you can enable relatively easily to uplift your email security to prevent against phishing. For those more technical, publish your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC on your domain. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but basically you start rejecting emails from non-trusted sources. Bit of a risk there, but most organizations are doing it, and it's made a considerable difference in email security. The next interesting one, BEC, business email compromise. These tend to be a bit more subtle. So they'll send an email, they'll wait maybe potentially weeks for organizations to go through that email, and there's usually a switchover, a new bank detail, so please change your payment details to XYZ, and then the attack is launched. Now this is quite an interesting one, because even large enterprise organizations, I'm not going to name some, but some have paid invoices because they just received it and they didn't know who it was, and in some cases it's easier to pay it than chase it. So it is quite an interesting one. From an insurance perspective, and this is a space I dabble in, insurers actually now ask on all proposal forms whether your business has a callback verification and a dual approval process for all transactions. So it's no longer just a IT cybersecurity issue, it's also an insurance and operational issue. So what can we do about it? Well, I've given two away. Verify every bank detail change by phone for a number that you already have, not the number in the email. 2 people approve any new payee regardless of the amount. And this is quite important, and there's a reason why it's regardless of an amount, because they usually start with small figures so that trust is established and it's not flagged as being malicious. And if, God forbid, you do end up paying something, you do have 24 hours with most banks, not all, to recovery. So if you notice it within 24 hours, you can lodge a transaction stop with your bank. Although in saying that, recovery is rare. So it's not a fallback option for organizations. Okay. Third one, quite interesting, and we hear a lot about this, ransomware. So what ransomware is basically they lock down your organization files and they refuse to give you the unlock key unless you pay them. As of the 30th of May 2025, any business with a turnover over 3 million must report ransomware payments within 72 hours to the relevant agencies. It is quite an interesting domain. It continues to be a worrying domain. Why pay the ransom? I wouldn't. Most organizations don't. And when you report it, there's obviously a lot of things that you'll need to discuss with the relevant agencies around the why and how. So the best thing is to avoid being locked down in the first place. One easy way and relatively easy way to prevent and manage things when there is ransomware breakouts in your environment is to have backups, offline backups that are immutable and that are actually tested. A lot of organizations that I've worked with have backups, but the last time they've actually rolled back from a backup was 5-10 years ago. That's not a backup anymore. Closing remote access that you don't use. So a lot of organizations have enabled access to their systems, servers, machines, which they may no longer use. So that's usually a quick win that I've seen in the past. And have I won't call it an incident response plan because that's not easy for some smaller organizations, but at least a one-page plan of what to do and who to call when something goes wrong. And when I say one page, I usually recommend you print it out because if it's on your system and it gets ransomware, you're not going to be able to access that file. So having a one-page plan, even on your phone, something real quick with all the phone numbers of people that you'd need to call for support if things get locked down. It's quite an interesting and scary area in the threat landscape, and it continues to grow. The third one is credential theft. So attackers don't need to break in, they can just log in. And what do I mean by this? Password leaks, especially reused passwords. So sometimes in some organizations, some staff trust their work email more than anything else. So they might use it to sign up to, say, Ticketek or something else that they might use on a regular basis. And they might inadvertently use the same password for what they use for work. What attackers do when there is a credential leak or there is a breach, they use those credentials to try to log in. And once they log in, it's quite easy for them to infiltrate your organization. What can we do about this? This one's easier to remediate. Password managers. I can't recommend that enough. If your organization doesn't have one, please flag it with me or discuss it with whoever your provider is. It's a quick win. It's an easy way to manage passwords. And password managers are getting smarter in the sense that they also tell you if your password's weak. And I'll be touching more on this, but enable multi-factor authentication on every system that you can. And I can guarantee you all the systems that you're using would have a MFA option, or you might have already been forced to switch over to MFA, whether it's via SMS or via an app. The quicker you do these things, the easier it is, as most, 42% of all serious incidents involved compromised accounts. So they didn't need to hack anything. They just used a floating password out there. fake invoices, remote access, especially the phone calls that we unfortunately all receive. Hey, it's Telstra. Hey, it's Microsoft. Let us install this tool. Impersonation attacks. These are getting more and more sophisticated, especially with the advent of AI. So there's a lot of really good voice impersonation software that's out there that's being used by malicious actors, to a point where I usually call everyone back, regardless of who it is, just to remediate that risk. Payroll and gift cards. Gift cards are quite a scary one. Some of the shopping centers have now put in restrictions as to how many you can buy, trying to prevent gift card scams. Gift card scams and buying gift cards are quite good for malicious actors because it's harder to trace a gift card because they can't see where that money went. So quite interesting and scary everyday scams that are increasing in volume, targeting businesses like yours. It might be an interesting fact as well to mention that there were 42,500 calls about identity fraud. This is from scamwatch.gov, which is an alarming number. That's a huge number, and it continues to go up, unfortunately. Warning signs that every staff member should know: email or SMS, something unexpected, a sender address that doesn't match the name, a login page reached from a link. In any payment request changes, so where there is payment request or anything to do with finance and payments and payroll, the pressure's on. And anything unusual in that domain is a flag. And obviously on your own devices, passwords, MFA, and everything else sort of in between. Now, next part of today's session is to discuss moves that cut most of the risk. And I'm going to go through some of that we've already covered, but reiterating them because they are quite important. MFA is a critical one. Every provider, Microsoft, Google, all the larger cloud providers, all have MFA rolled into every user account. All Xero, Maya, payroll software have it as well. And I can't emphasize the need to enable this, not just for yourself, but for your staff, management, and everyone else around you, because it's one of the easiest ways that attackers can breach an organization. Okay. Now, app codes are better than SMS from a technical perspective. However, SMS beats not having anything at all. Okay. Never, and this is one for staff, never approve a prompt that you didn't trigger. That prompt is the beginning of the attack. And another interesting one that I've seen people suffer with and sort of stress out about is saving backup codes for your accounts offline. So with all these MFA solutions, one issue is if you lose access to your phone or to that app, accessing your account gets considerably more difficult. So have a backup code, which you can download from the provider to enable your account in an offline capacity, a completely offline capacity. The next control that I wanted to discuss is password security. So long beats short passwords, that's quite obvious. Unique passwords, and again, using a password manager can do all this for you quite easily. Password managers can create the password. You can share passwords securely between password managers' accounts. So you can send a password that you use for whatever reason. Let's say it's an application that a staff member needs to log on to without them seeing the password, which is quite powerful. Now, the ASD no longer recommends 90-day password resets, a whole host of reasons, one of them being people just change one character or two. So having a complex password in a password manager is quite critical. While we're talking, if you've never seen the website Have I Been Pawned, and I've got the domain there, PWNED, it's a website run by an Australian where you can type in your email address and see if your business email or personal email was part of any data breach. So that's a really quick one to see what's out there on your organization or email. And there's many other tools, enterprise tools that are available that can really manage this process for you from both a password management perspective and an identity management perspective. Okay. Backups. I'll start with this one since we've already sort of discussed or started this conversation. Everyone has Microsoft 365 or Google. Now, syncing your files is not a backup, because when it's syncing the files faithfully, it's also syncing files that can be ransomware. So let's say a file is locked down on your machine, the online version will also be locked down. So having a segregated backup that's not sync based is extremely critical. Testing your backups at least quarterly, even more so. Okay. And a plugged in hard drive, again, is also not a backup, because if you get ransomware, I can almost guarantee that that drive will also be locked down. So what that means is you need a completely separate backup. There are different solutions on the market. If you need to discuss it, I'm obviously available to walk through some of them. I'll also mention this. Microsoft actually has it in their T's and C's that it's your responsibility to have your own backup. They don't do backups for you. They only sync depending on which enterprise plan you're on. So that's a really, really important thing. If you call Microsoft, they're going to ask you for your own backup. They can't provide one for you. The next control domain that I wanted to discuss is access control, really. So least privilege. Not everybody needs to be an administrator. Not everyone needs access to everything. Easier said than done for some businesses, but the principle of least privilege needs to be discussed and at least thought about in your organization. Separate admin accounts is another one. Don't have a God-only mode account that can access and do everything. Splitting that up can really, really help. A lot of SMBs have high staff turnover because of the nature of their businesses. Having a checklist of who had access to what and same-day offboarding can really, really help. So removing access a month or two later after the person's quit is not good practice. So having a checklist of removing their email accounts, job systems, banking, alarm codes, keys is quite important. Never share logins. And as I mentioned earlier, password managers can really help you manage what passwords you share, and you can revoke access with your own password manager to your staff members, which is quite powerful. Next control that I wanted to discuss, software updates. So closing doors on systems that are out of date, have vulnerabilities. And I've got a bit of an order plane on the screen. So internet facing gear, routers, firewalls, VPNs. If they don't need to be exposed, don't expose them. If what I'm saying doesn't make sense, we can discuss it after the call or speak to your provider about it, because it is quite important to block access to certain internet-facing devices. Next one's a difficult one for SMBs, but it needs to be managed, and there is software that can do this for you. Updating systems, whether it be your phone, your laptop, whatever it may be. If you don't update, you are exposing vulnerabilities to your systems. For example, Windows 10 support ended in October last year. Okay, if you're still running Windows 10, it's probably quite urgent that you move off it. And I know for some SMBs, it's a overhead headache that needs to be done, but it is quite critical because the vulnerabilities that are exposed on end-of-life software can be quite devastating. And when I say vulnerabilities, what I mean is basically the keys to break into those applications are available online. So they don't really need to do much to break into your environment, which is quite scary. Okay. Everyday habits that quietly prevent disasters. So I've discussed email protection and reviewing and discussing and thinking about how you can uplift your email security posture. Devices, phones, laptops, even tablets in vehicles. I see a lot of SMBs that have tablets in their vehicles, which have access to everything in their environments. At least even locking them or having an auto lockout feature. Wi-Fi security, and that's a whole other topic. But basically, a lot of organizations have really basic and simple Wi-Fi setups they can be broken into, especially if they're accessible to floor staff. People and culture. The most effective system you can implement is uplifting and discussing security with your staff. It's an easy, quick win. And what I usually tell organizations is send out emails, have those conversations with staff. It can really, really make a difference. I've got the report cyber number on the screen, but a one-page plan with everyone you need to call in the event of a crisis. And finally, your backup team. It's your IT, your security provider, your insurance company, okay? And a whole host of other things that you can walk through that we can provide for your team in the event of a catastrophic attack. Now, the good thing is you don't have to do this alone. Whether it's your existing partner, a new partner, or us, having a good partner allows for eyes on your systems around the clock. So whether you're on site, you're asleep, you're in a meeting, you've got someone who can look at these things when you're busy, and their job will be to support yours when you're working. There is enterprise tooling at SMB scale for email, endpoint, and identity. What that means is you don't need to spend a small fortune to get enterprise grade software. There is some really good things out there that can be used. And for insurance companies, tenders, and larger clients, you actually do need to provide and you might have already been through this, your existing security policies, because a lot of larger organizations won't work with smaller providers if they don't meet their security requirements. Okay. A question to ask your provider: what would you do in the first hour of an incident at my business? That's a really, really powerful question because it really helps you unpack what needs to happen. What we do at Tenadex is we focus on SMB security. We do environment reviews. We do architecture reviews of how everything fits in for your business. And we also do governance reviews. So policies, incident planning, Essential 8, whatever it may be. We also have access to enterprise SMB grade software. And basically we can enable those on a trial basis, obligation free, to test out and see existing issues in your environment. We also provide incident response in the event of a major attack. So if you feel something looks wrong, don't hesitate, call. And we do awareness training for staff and teams to help uplift security. Second last slide for today. Look at MFA, look at your systems, look at your applications. What can you enable to enhance the login process? Review passwords. Review your password policy in Microsoft. Check your domain if it's already been part of a password breach. Prove your backups, so actually test them. Do one real simulated restore, okay? And tidy up. Admin reviews, offboarding checklists, verify by phone rule, a 5-minute team briefing. Look at what you can do from a habitual perspective that can uplift security in your organization. Okay. Final slide. You're a target, an automated one. So a lot of these attacks usually aren't targeted. They're just looking for the weakest vulnerability that they can find and they launch their attack. Most attacks start with an email and a password. So something that they found in a dump or part of a breach with another organization, which they use to log into yours. If you have the right backup and updates, you can turn a catastrophic day into just a bad day, which is a big difference from an operational perspective. And finally, you don't have to do it alone. So there are organizations like ours which specialize in helping your organization stay secure, stay safe, and continue to operate. And I'll open up the floor for any questions. So I'll stop sharing my screen there. Let's see, guys, away with some questions. Let me see if I can fully open that up. What are the biggest mistakes SMBs make when it comes to cybersecurity? Usually the biggest mistake is to not take it seriously. A lot of SMBs think, look, it's not going to be me. I'm not Telstra. I'm not Optus. I'm not Medibank. I'm not one of the big providers. Why would we be targeted? And that mindset usually leads to a breach. A more common one I hear is, we've never been breached since inception, and it's been 10 years. It's almost like saying, I've never had a car accident, so therefore I should probably cancel my insurance policy. it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. These are opportunistic attacks. So when they do find something, they do take advantage. And the sheer volume of SMBs in Australia also mean that you may not hear about other attacks on people in your sector. So you might think it's never happened to my industry, but for 70% of your competitors could have been targeted and have been breached already. So it's more the mindset issue from a mistake perspective that I see with SMBs.
Yeah, excellent. And just with that too, just another question. Out of the list that you mentioned, because there were a few, do you know what would be the biggest cybersecurity risk today?
Identity. So I can't emphasize it enough. Your password, so I'll get everyone to do this. It's quite a fun experiment. Google, have I been pawned? Type in your personal email address. I've seen very panicked faces in some other events that I've run when people do this. The problem is it's not you, it's where you log on to. So, for example, a lot of people had accounts with Ticketek when they got breached. So they, created an account, put their passwords in, thought it was okay till something happened, and then suddenly their passwords out on the internet, along with other providers. So it is quite a common issue, but that's probably the biggest vector of attack.
That's wonderful. That's really, really great. Does anyone else have any other questions? Not at this stage. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Monty, for that really informative session. That was wonderful, actually. There were so many takeaways there. So thank you very much. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. And again, thank you to Neca and Susie and Elizabeth. We really hope you found this session helpful. I definitely did. If you do have any questions or would like to learn more, please feel free to get in touch with us. You can reach Ruby Talent through the Neca website. We have our link, and we will be sharing a link after the session as well. So you can get in touch with us. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you both. That was great, Monty. Thank you so much. And I'm sure a lot of people businesses will get value, and individuals. So I just wanted to move on to the next slide, which is just a little bit of information for NECA members, also for non-members. So the member knowledge base gives you access to hundreds of legally compliant documents and templates that you can implement in your business. This way, that's going to save you time and money, because you don't have to go around searching on the internet to find information out. This is all included in membership, but also more than that's included in membership, but it would be totally off the slide to put any more information there. Next slide, please. Okay, so NECA we have a portal app, which means you can download the app for Android and also for Apple. The two QR codes are on your screen. What it means is you've got NECA at your fingertips, basically. So you can jump into the app and you can see all the information that you need, or you can give us a call, you can talk to member services, we can get you through to the tech team and the safety team, or whoever you need to talk to, or even myself. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Susie Arthur, and I'm your new membership manager for New South Wales. I will have some information up at the screen on the end. So next slide, please. So bringing you to our Excellence Awards, which are on the 4th of September at Accor Stadium. Members can pay for a ticket. It's an absolutely brilliant day. And it's celebrating, basically, bringing together contractors, suppliers, manufacturers, industry leaders to celebrate the outstanding achievements across the sector. You can purchase tickets through the website or by scanning the QR code, which is on your screen. I do believe that ticket sales close on Friday, and we only have a few left. So if you're interested, please go ahead and purchase. Next slide, please. Okay, so just some highlights here on this link for the NECA Queensland Awards, which has just been completed, which was a fabulous success. If you'd like to have a look at some of the highlights of the awards, click on the link that's on the slide. And If you can, we'd love you to complete our post-webinar survey. This really helps us. It only takes a few minutes, and it really helps us shape the content that we deliver to you in the future. So that would be great if you don't mind doing that for us. And just a final slide, thank you to everyone for tuning in for today's session. Members and non-members, our contact details are up on this screen, so please reach out if you need any assistance. A big special thank you to Gladys and Monty, our guest speakers, for this really valuable information. I think the learning out of this is act now, not later. And thank you everyone for dialing in, and have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you again. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Gladys.
you.
Thank you, Monty.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.